Our bulkheads are 12 inches wide, solid steel. They have a finger plate in front of this. One nut and bolt through the top of the finger plate mounts the entire shooter to our bulkhead.
That's it?
That's it. It's as simple as that.
Did any of them move on you at all, or?
We had no problems. We had nothing that we had to re-bore or redo. After we install the shooter, mount it to our bulkheads, there is a simple cage that slides over top of the shooter. One 2-inch chair on top of the shooter that holds it up off of the shooter, and that's basically it. We don't do anything else to it. Install these shooters was not a problem at all. We didn't have to do any work down inside the bottom of the stem. We didn't have to reach down in there, get the plates in, or get any daps in. It was a matter of one bolt and nut on the inside of our stem of our bulkhead, and that takes a matter of 2 to 3 minutes per shooter. Well, first of all, we have to put our stem plates in at the bottom of the stem, which usually is a little bit cumbersome getting down there and reaching down there, and the plates get rather big. And then we also have to put daps in to make up that space, and that's another thing that we have to work on down inside the stem, down in here, and the form is up here. Well, first of all, we have to put our stem plates in at the bottom of the stem, which usually is a little bit cumbersome getting down there and reaching down there, and the plates get rather big. And then we also have to put daps in to make up that space, and that's another thing that we have to work on down inside the stem, down in here, and the form there isn't a lot of difference in the two, except for the fact, as I'll repeat again, that I did not have to reach down into the bottom of the stem. The cage was manhandled on top of the stem, which is on top of the form, where we don't have to reach in to get at anything. Therefore, it's also visibly in place, where down in the stem it's hard to see sometimes whether they get butted up to the proper location. Oh, I would much rather do it this way.
And just because of
the simplicity in installing it inside the form without having to do any work down into the bottom of the stem. And none of the stems afterwards cracked down into the bottom using the shooter up top.
Any other comments? Good, bad, or otherwise?
It was all good to me. I didn't have a problem putting them in.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Typically we use a typical bearing plate, either a DAPT plate or a typical bearing plate that sits on a ledge, corbel on a light wall, or a ledge on an inverted TB. A couple of issues. One of them was that we have a project that is using vertical light walls, and there are some issues with installing double T's with the corbels already on the light walls, passing by the light walls above, the corbels above, as you're installing double T's below. That was one of the main drivers. The second is we've had some folks in our marketplace, designers, who are very interested in reducing the ledges or corbels on projects in general, aesthetically, as well as a place for birds and things to collect. It went quite well. The guys in production were actually very happy. While there was a little additional reinforcing, it was a lot simpler. It's up higher in the form, in the stem, and therefore simpler to access. And in general, the guys were quite happy using the shooter versus our DAP plates in particular. Plenty of support from JVI serviced us well as technical support to help us to come up with ways and means to be able to use additional reinforcing and to make it, systematize it, if you will, to make it simple to use. We chose to use rebar, and we actually pre-tied an assembly that slips in one assembly over the top of the shooter.
Gotcha.
When you're looking at strictly material cost, yes, you can argue that the shooter itself costs more. When we looked at the full system, in other words, the shooter versus the DAP plates, including the corbels on the light walls and the whole system, it came out to be comparable pricing. We did bring in an erector, using it for the first time. We put two double T side by side in our yard with the intent of how they would actually install them on the site and being able to pull out the tubes and pull them back in, and that went very, very well. We were all quite impressed with how well it functioned. So we really tried to make sure we had everything prepared, and again, we got lots of support from JVI. Again, what it really gives us is the ability to drop a double T down straight versus tipping them. That's one of the advantages from an install standpoint. Again, we're going to learn a lot more, I think, when we actually do install it, but we've tried to foresee all the different things that could occur. And it also, one of the things that we like is that we have a pocket in our light walls versus the corbel. So we're looking forward to see how it all turns out. We actually did some load testing of actual double T. Again, with JVI support, they gave us an actual test procedure to be able to test the shooters to their capacity. And we actually performed a load test here in our yard, and everything performed very, very well. We loaded the double Ts, left them over the weekend, checked everything out, and everything passed with flying colors, and that again gave us another level of comfort using a new product that everything worked very well. With the load test, we actually tested them on the ramp, and we actually skewed the T or sloped the T at the maximum skew, so that or slope, so that we could test it at that angle, so that we were again confident that we had no issues, either flat level T's or on the slope. Yes, we can use them on one side or the other. We used them on the light wall side to try it for the first time. We are very interested, should this work, to try it on both sides. That was what we were really interested in, is on both the spandrel side and the light wall side.
Thank you, brother.
Some of the difficulties we've experienced on the project is that we have putting a guy underneath to put the pin in after sitting in its bearing. Getting that guy in that position has been a little difficult. Other than that, the difficulties, there haven't been a lot of other major difficulties that we've had. Actually, the bearings have been sliding out very well. They've been easy to connect, easy to pull out, pull in, pull out as needed. So that's been working really well for it. In a vertical light wall setting, it's gonna work the best in that setting, because in those settings you're having to either tip the T into a pocket on a spandrel, or you're tipping the T even onto a ledge to miss the haunches on the vertical sections of the wall above. That's where you won't have to make that. You won't have to make those dangerous. Sometimes it's 10, 11 foot tipping of the T into that pocket or that ledge. That it creates a really dangerous situation while you're erecting. And when you don't have to do that, it eliminates it. And you can bring them in flat. It completely eliminates that hazard. It works excellent. If the guys can follow the directions and you teach the men how to use the vector properly, it works great. It's been something for us that we've had a lot of success with if you follow the directions properly. We've had a lot of times we've had to go back and make some changes to it if guys are welding slugs together or doing some, over welding or something like that. But as long as they're following the directions provided by you, there's been no issues. The spider plate, we have had a little bit of issues we felt with the spider plate this year on a project, because we thought maybe there wasn't enough behind the plate, maybe some additional rebar. I know that the project we've done this year with this customer, they've actually added rebar to the back of the plate, I believe, to give it some more strength. I think that's really been the only issue we've had.